have been two interesting things on my podcast journey. In the beginning, when you start off on podcasts, or if you haven't been interviewed very much, your message will be all over the place because you don't really know what they're going to ask. You don't know what your answer is going to be. The knowledge is in your head, but it's not connected to your mouth, and it doesn't kind of come out in an eloquent way. If you've been interviewed 10 times, 20 times, 50 times, you'll find that there's a lot of patterns. You get asked the same questions over and over again. That really, really helps when you're a podcast guest. And I think it shows more experienced podcast guests, most more experienced guests. They have told that story that they told 1,000 times in 1,000 different places, but it comes across as natural. It comes across as funny because they have really practiced at it. So that would be a recommendation to a lot of guests as well. Maybe you pick a few podcasts that are low on the podcast score just to get your feet wet. One of the things that I found on my podcast guest journey after having done that is I've actually learned more about myself. When somebody asks you something, a very common question like, Ray, tell me a little bit about you. The first time I answered, I'm like, well, I don't really know how to answer that because that's just a general question. By the 50th time, you're like, yeah, I know who I am because I've answered this question many, many times. Like, when they ask you about your opinions and everything, it really helps you clarify your thoughts, things that you know, but nobody ever asks you in real life that you get to share with the world. And by the end of it, you might actually have a clearer identity of who you are, kind of an added bonus to being a guest on podcasts. That was a surprise to me. It wasn't my goal. It wasn't my intention, but I found that happening after about 50 shows.